So, hello Year 10s, I hope we're doing well and that we've managed to get through some of those revision packs that were sent home or given to you um, before you left. I just want now to introduce the first week's assignment and hopefully give you a bit of a better understanding of what we're going to be doing over the next few weeks with paper 2. So this is the title. What can we remember about power between circa 1000 and 1485? Just a little recap. This is paper 2. Paper 2 is power through time. Yeah, and we've already started on that journey. Yeah, if you remember, every year up until about here, we studied before we began the Reformation paper. We stopped because chronologically this is when the Reformation happens, around Henry VIII's period. But we are now getting back on that train, and that is the analogy that I kept using, because remember, there's a lot for us to learn, but it is a train journey. You might remember this GIF explaining paper 2. It's like a train line. We're not going to get off at every stop. There are certain places we look out at to look for particular things being power related. If you remember from one of our early lessons, we talked about what power is. Robert Dahl's definition of power as A has power over B to the extent that B can do something, or sorry, A can get B to do something that B would not otherwise do. We've been asking in the first part of our course, Inquiry 1, who really ruled England? Who had the power in England? And we looked at different moments in English history on that train line where that question of who really ruled England was at the forefront of our learning and at the forefront of England at the time. But we've got a second inquiry now. We're getting back on that train, and the second question is a different one. So the second question is this one: how and when did England transition from supreme to frivolous monarchs? So on the left-hand side, we have that famous, one of those many famous images of Henry VIII with his feet on the Pope Clement, showing his supreme authority. And I didn't use that word supreme by chance. That is a crucial word if we remember the act of supremacy. Henry VIII was a powerful monarch. And on the right here, we see a satirical cartoon, quite a rude satirical cartoon, really. I'm sure it scandalised people at the time. This is from someone called James Gilray, and it's an image of King George III, who comes at the end of our next section of the course. And George III was a king who was mocked for being basically a frivolous monarch. Frivolous meaning not taking things seriously. He clearly lived a quite debauched, drunk life in which he really cared more about enjoying himself rather than ruling the country. Something that Henry VIII definitely didn't do. Regardless of what people say about him having many wives, he certainly took the rule of England as primary, as his most important job, and he took it as a religious job. We see towards the end of our section here that we move towards frivolous monarchs, so supreme to frivolous. And the question we were asking over the next series of assignments, weeks, this is the big question: how did that happen, and when did that happen? Okay. And to do that, we're going to ask ourselves, what happened to the power of the monarch from being this supreme authority to becoming this figure of fun? We're going to ask these kinds of questions. Did the power of the monarch decline? Well, yes, it did. But did it consistently decline? Was it a bumpy decline? Did it go up and down? And how would we measure this process? Does it look like that? Is it a consistent process? Is it something that never changed? And I'm telling you now that that red line is incorrect. Does it look a little bit more like that? Does it look like this, in fact, version 3 rather than either version 1 or 2? And that is our assessment. That is our inquiry. And to do that for week 1, we just need to try and remind ourselves, first off, where were the monarchs by 1485? What power did they have by 1485? What challenges did they face? And this is a recap lesson. So week 1 is really about recap. And the happy news for you guys is that if you did your workbook, your revision workbook packs, and there won't be much more work for you to do. It's just about putting it in digitally. So the first thing you're going to need to do, task 1, is to name and title your digital textbook, digital exercise book. And to do that, I want to show you how to do that. So you have all been set your own version of a digital exercise book. They look a little bit, hopefully if I can get it up on screen, they look a little bit like this. So here we have a version that will look very similar to the one that's been set for you by me, where you would put your full name. So for me, obviously, it would be this, but it would be very different for all of you. Your form, I might as well put 10-ash because I'm a 9-ash tutor. And your history teacher, well, I teach myself a lot, so I'm going to put my name. Here's a nice little kind of diagram of it, but there's a nice little message I've written for you, and it tells you what's in your digital exercise book. So that's task 1 done, by the way. The only other thing I need to do with task 1 is write in the title. So under lessons, you write in the lesson title for this week. By the way, it's week 1, lesson number 1, and the date today is the 4th of April. Okay. I might want to put the year just to be exact, but you don't need to, just as long as you put the date that you're doing the work. And if we go back to the actual lesson title, the lesson title is up here. We don't even need to type it in necessarily, you could just copy and paste. So what can we remember about power between 1000 and 1485? Okay, so do that. That's your first task done. Very simple, done in a minute. But the next ones are a bit more interesting, maybe a bit more difficult. The glossary task, very simple to go through. These are the key words from paper 2 and write in examples of them. So for instance, abdicated, I can think of an example. Richard II abdicated the throne in 1399. Okay, that's some knowledge that I can remember, I recall. But if you're struggling on this, you can use the textbook, you can use your own exercise book. Then there's the timeline activity. Again, I can remember quite a few of these because we did these in games, actually. A lot of you did. Let me pick one at random. Oh, well, I've already talked about Richard III. So 1399, Richard III is removed and replaced by Henry Bolingbroke, if you remember that, who becomes Henry IV. And the question here, what does this reveal about power at the time? Barons were powerful, e.g. Bolingbroke, and, we need to spell that correctly, and kings were unstable. Okay, so there you go. I'm going to do that for all of these, and you should have done these in your workbooks already. But if you haven't, that's totally fine. You can now do it here. If you have done both of them, even better. There's a key figures and individuals task, which again, you need to remind yourself of some of these key figures. I'm going to go for Harold Godwinson. Who was he? He was a contender for the throne in 1066. Son of Earl Godwin and chosen by the Witan. Does this reveal a powerful or weak monarch? Well, he was king for a matter of days, so a weak monarch. And the PQ thing, well, that's an extra task. I might say, well, describe the powers of Anglo-Saxon monarchs. That's something that I've taken from actually down, all the way down at the bottom here, some practice exam questions. Although actually cheekily I've not used the ones that are there. It could be how significant was the death of Edward the Confessor. Let me be a bit more specific. So I can use okay, that's a 14-mark question. So that is all the activities based in here. Now, just to go back to our PowerPoint, I've done all of those, 1, 2, 3, and 4, hopefully now. The only other activity is attached in this assignment, and it is to complete a Google quiz. It is a very simple quiz based upon the key stuff we learned from this part of the course. If you've done activity 2, 3, and 4, it should be straightforward. Give it a shot, see how many you can get right. And once you've done all of those, you can click submit, and I or your teacher can have a look at your work. And now we'll be working with the digital exercise books. If you read in the digital exercise book, it's an explanation of this. But if you have a paper exercise book, my advice to you is please do use it as well. You can use it as a kind of neat version, a place where you can consolidate some of your notes that you've taken on your digital exercise book. This is a great opportunity to just get that knowledge secure, so you can do it digitally, get us to check, and then write it in your exercise book. Please, if you have any questions, do write comments or place comments in the assignment below. I hope maybe you're so desperate now that it's very nice to hear my voice. Even if it isn't, these videos will be very useful for you. So please do watch them before taking part or during taking part in the activities. And we need to keep our learning going. So for now, goodbye, but I'm sure we'll speak soon.